The frog is the area of the set of points where the two closure rails meet and then cross over each other. With Insulfrog points, it's made of plastic, so is electrically a dead spot. All current Hornby, Pico set track and Pico streamline points with the prefix SL are all of this type. Electrical track power is switched by the position of the switch rail touching against the fixed stock rail, and track power to the selected direction or route is then fed via the switch rail onto the closure rail by factory-fitted wires underneath the plastic frog, where finally they connect to the appropriate rail after the frog. Track power is automatically cut off to the unselected direction, and is restored when the point is moved over and set for that direction, and then the power is cut off to the former route or direction. Therefore, using Insulfrog points is the easiest of all. Their only downside is that at times, they can cause poor running, especially when short-wheelbase locomotives are traveling slowly across these points, and will hesitate or even stall completely, due to the wheels losing electrical power while on the frog, as described in the previous video. Therefore, if slow running and sidings are key operations in a layout, I'd recommend using Electrofrog points instead. The function of the spring in Pico points ensures that the throw rails do indeed throw, and stay stuck to the stock rails, and also apply pressure towards the frog, thus keeping the throw rails snug against the closure rails. But the movement is rather sudden as it goes over center. It's a choice of course, but many modelers remove the spring, and replace it with a wire attached to the rotating arm of a servo motor by the judicious positioning of the motor itself, to produce a smoother movement. Motors such as the 9G Micro Servo, which are used in radio-controlled planes, boats, and other vehicles, make excellent mechanisms for model railway points and semaphore signals. They have a torque of 1.8 kilograms per centimeter, a variable speed and end-stop adjustment. The 9G uses 5 to 6 volts DC and is attached to a controller. Once it is centered and mounted in place, use a short length of piano wire of 0.7 mm thickness, and create an S-bend at one end, and insert that end into the servo arm, and the other end of the wire into the pivot hole, and through to the turnout arm. Once the wire is threaded through the turnout arm, carefully attach the servo arm to the servo in the center position. Seat point motors come in several types. The Seat PM2 will change the point and nothing else. The PM1 has a built-in polarity switch, and the PM40 has a locking mechanism as well as the polarity switch. Seat, Hornby and Pico point motors are all solenoid types, and as such, need a big thump of power to move them, maybe 2 or 3 amps, which may exceed the accessory output of your controller, so if more than one these motors is required, you should use a separate power supply, along with a capacitor discharge unit, which is a small electronics panel which stores up the power, and then releases the power to the solenoid motor when you flick a switch, thus ensuring it works every time. The GM510A5H switch from GaugeMaster is a momentary toggle switch, which means that if you switch it in a direction and let the switch go, it will return to center off, therefore making it ideal for all solenoid type switches. A simple out-of-the-box DC system, such as an oval of pre-curved track with a few straight sections powered by a plug-in mains adapter to safely reduce the AC supply to 12 volts of DC current, and a controller to enable the operator to control the speed and direction of a locomotive, or a complete passenger or freight train, will provide the basic layout for the beginner to start his or her journey into the world of model railways. Before long, the beginner will want to expand the layout and purchase more track to create another loop and a set of points to connect the two, but when it's connected up with the new crossover, a problem arises where the inner or outer loop doesn't work, or keeps stopping. This is because the additional loop requires its own power supply, so a controller capable of powering and controlling 2 or more tracks is required. Sidings will probably be next on the list to add to the layout, and then perhaps another loop which may rejoin the main loop elsewhere. 12-volt direct current can come from a mains-to-safe extra low voltage plug into the wall socket power pack or via a directly fed mains-powered single, twin or more knob controller. Each controller allows for totally separate operation of a section of railway track via its control knob or slider. The more you turn up the controller, more of the nominal 12 volts is provided to the rails, which is 0 volts slowly up to a maximum of around 12 volts. Some makes of mains-powered controllers also offer other outputs which are not controlled by a knob or slider, such as a 16-volt alternating current, or AC output and a 12-volt direct current, or DC output. These are called uncontrolled outputs. The 16-volt AC output is normally used to power point motors via special switches, while the 12-volt DC output is quite often used to supply such things as the lighting of buildings, streets, and platforms, or even powering the motors for turntables. They are also the ports used to connect to a slave and non-mains powered controller to operate an additional track. If soldering dropper wires to the rails is not something you want to get involved with, power clips are available which are simply pushed into the gaps under the rails and between the sleeper spacing, or use a power connection track, which has built-in spring-loaded power connecting terminals, and is a short straight of 168 mm, which is the same length as the Hornby R600 or the Pico ST200 equivalent. I hope this short series has helped, or at least inspired you to look further into the hobby. But it's not inexpensive, and like the layout, it can take time to build up the rolling stock while getting it for a good price, and it's quite addictive. You might have an era or place of interest you would like to replicate in N or 00 scale, or just go with your imagination, but look at layouts online or at any exhibitions that might be local enough for you to get to for ideas. Track plans of all sizes from small to almost exhibition size are available online as well as in book form. As I've mentioned before, it's your layout and your rules, so how far you go with the scenics and other detailing is up to you. You get out of it what you put into it. Good luck, and thank you for watching. If there are any other areas you would like me to go over, leave me a note in the comments, and I'd be happy to hear how you are getting along with your own layouts.